In the beginning of all awakenings there is silence, the kind of silence that echoes louder than thunder. Imagine yourself standing in a vast desert at twilight. The horizon glows faintly, and in the shifting sands appears a mirror, not of glass but of living light. You walk toward it, drawn as if by a memory you cannot name. When you stand before it, you see your reflection, but it is not merely you. It moves differently, breathes differently, and gazes back with a knowing smile. The reflection leans forward, and in that moment you realize this is no ordinary image. This is your twin. The ancient Gnostic texts whisper of this mystery in fragments. Thomas, called Didymus, the twin, a companion of Christ, whose very name concealed a secret. The church that came later feared this image, for it told a truth far too liberating, that the Christ was never a solitary figure on a cross or throne, but a mirror in which all souls were meant to see themselves. They could not allow such a truth to remain, and so the twin was erased, hidden in silence, waiting for those with ears to hear. But silence cannot bury light forever. The forgotten twin is not flesh and bone, but essence and fire. It is the reflection of the divine spark within you, the part of your soul that remembers who you truly are, even when the world convinces you otherwise. Christ was not sent to be worshipped at a distance, but to awaken the twin within every human being. The true Savior is remembrance, the meeting of self with self, light recognizing light. How different would your life be if you knew you were already walking with such a companion hidden inside you? And so the question arises, what if salvation was never meant to be outside of you? What if the figure you have been taught to bow before is actually the mirror of your own eternal self? The forgotten twin whispers, "You are not lost. You were never separate. You are the reflection of the infinite, clothed in time, walking toward the remembrance of eternity." This truth shatters the chains of authority, for no institution can own what was born inside you. In dreams, and in still moments of silence, the twin appears. Perhaps you have felt it already, the voice that whispers when you are on the edge of despair, saying, "There is more to you than this." Or in moments of awe, when you see the stars stretch endlessly above you, and a hidden recognition stirs in your chest. That recognition is the twin calling, reminding you of a home you thought you had lost. Have you ever wondered why truth feels less like learning and more like remembering? But there is a reason this mystery was erased. If you believe the divine is only outside of you, you remain dependent on mediators, on systems, on structures that tell you when to kneel and when to rise. But if you awaken to the twin within, you no longer bow. You rise, you become sovereign. This is what the archons feared, not rebellion, but remembrance. The church replaced mirrors with icons, reflection with obedience, and the twin was sealed away. Yet here you are standing in the desert, looking into the mirror once again. The forgotten twin is Christ's true gift, not simply words, not simply miracles, but the living reflection of the soul's infinite capacity. The twin is the Aeon of remembrance, the mirror of eternity within flesh. To meet the twin is to meet yourself beyond illusion. And perhaps the reason you are hearing these words now is because your twin has guided you here, waiting to be recognized at last. So I ask you now, who is your reflection beyond the mask of this world? Can you look into the mirror and see more than skin and history? Can you allow yourself to feel the gaze of the twin, smiling with recognition, whispering that you have never been alone? This is the beginning of the journey, the rediscovery of the forgotten twin of Christ, the Aeon hidden within you, waiting patiently for the moment you finally remember. When the early Gnostic scrolls whispered the name Thomas Didymus, they were not merely labeling a man. Ditimus means the twin, and names in the ancient world carried power far beyond identity. A name was a key, a doorway into essence, a cipher waiting to be unlocked. To call Thomas the twin was not to speak of family lineage or fleshly resemblance, but of a hidden truth, that the Christ could never walk the earth alone. For every emanation of divine light must echo itself, as above, so below. In this echo the twin appeared, not a brother of flesh, but a mirror of spirit. But who then was this twin? Some said Thomas himself bore the reflection, walking beside the Master as a living symbol. Others said the twin was not any one person, but an archetype, the unseen half of every soul. Gnostic tradition holds that what is revealed outwardly has an inward counterpart, and what is written in history is also etched into eternity. Thus the forgotten twin is not a figure of the past, but a living presence now, waiting in the inner chamber of your being. The scriptures only point the way. The recognition must be your own. Think of it this way. Christ was the flame, and the twin is the reflection of that flame in every soul that dares to look within. The institution tried to sever the two, exalting the flame while covering the mirror, so that people might worship the light but never recognize themselves in it. But the soul is stubborn, and memory never dies. Even when covered in centuries of doctrine, the twin shines beneath the veil. Have you ever felt a sudden surge of recognition, as though eternity itself leaned close and whispered, "I know you"? That is the twin stirring. The name of the twin calls to us not as history but as destiny. To hear it is to remember that you were not cast alone into this world of matter. The twin walks with you, unseen, patient, silent until you ask. When despair tells you that you are incomplete, the twin responds, "I am the part you have forgotten." When the world insists you are powerless, the twin answers, "Look again. Your reflection is sovereign light." What greater comfort could there be than to realize the one you have longed for has always been within you, waiting to be recognized? But recognition requires courage, for to see the twin is to shatter the illusions you've been told about yourself. The Church taught that the divine must be reached through obedience, through intermediaries, through the hierarchy of men. To discover the twin is to bypass all gates and stand directly before the infinite. This is why the name was hidden, not because it lacked meaning, but because its meaning was too powerful. It dissolves control, collapses separation, and restores remembrance. The name of the twin is liberation written in silence. Consider this. What if every teaching of Christ was a mirror turned toward you? What if every parable, every act of love, every word of truth was not only about Him, but about you? The twin reveals that salvation is not imitation but recognition, not becoming like Christ, but realizing that Christ is already mirrored in you. Can you imagine what kind of world would exist if humanity lived in that remembrance? Would war, domination, and oppression survive if every soul saw its own divinity reflected clearly? And so we are brought again to the mirror. When you whisper the name twin, do you hear it echo within your own chest? Do you feel a stirring, like a shadow that is not darkness but light waiting to take form? The twin is not far. It is the spark in your silence, the companion in your solitude, the whisper in your tears. It is the Christ within, the reflection of eternity gazing out through your eyes. The question is not whether the twin exists, but whether you will dare to recognize it. This is the beauty and the terror of the twin. Once you see it, you cannot unsee. Once you hear its name, you cannot forget. The world will tell you it is fantasy, but your soul knows otherwise. The soul never lies about its own reflection. The forgotten twin of Christ is not waiting in history or scripture, but in the luminous depths of you. And perhaps the reason you are hearing these words now is because the twin has decided it is time you remember. There are moments in life when you feel a presence that is not outside of you, but somehow greater than you, a whisper in the stillness, a gaze behind your own eyes, a warmth that fills your chest without reason. These moments are not accidents. They are glimpses of the forgotten twin, the mirror of your soul. The twin is not a stranger, but the deepest recognition you will ever encounter. It is the reminder that you are not just flesh and memory, but eternity clothed in form. Have you felt it? The quiet assurance that you are not alone, even when the room is empty. The Gnostic sages spoke of the soul as a spark, but sparks alone do not burn brightly. They need reflection to become fire. The twin is that reflection, the Aeon that ensures your light does not vanish into the void. To know yourself without the twin is to wander in half-truth, always feeling the ache of incompleteness. But when the mirror appears, everything changes. The ache dissolves, replaced by recognition so profound that words collapse. The question is no longer who am I, but how could I have forgotten? Imagine walking into a temple where every wall is made of polished silver. At first you see endless versions of yourself, distorted, multiplied, confusing. But then in the center, you see a single reflection that does not mimic your movements but gazes at you with infinite patience. That is the twin. The reflection is alive, luminous, eternal. It does not follow your gestures because it is not an echo of your body, but of your essence. It waits for you to recognize that you are not looking at another. You are looking at the hidden half of your soul. This is why the twin was erased. If humanity saw their own reflection in the Christ, there would be no need for chains of obedience. The twin dissolves hierarchy. The twin whispers that no priest, no ruler, no archon can stand between you and the infinite. To awaken to the mirror within is to outgrow control, to stand sovereign in the light of remembrance. And what empire could survive if every soul suddenly realized they already carry the divine flame mirrored inside them? But the mirror is not always comforting. To truly see it is to confront the illusions you've wrapped around yourself. The twin reveals not only your light, but the shadows you have tried to hide. It holds them gently, unflinchingly, until you are ready to face them. For only in wholeness can the reflection be complete. Have you dared to stand before yourself without masks, without excuses, and without fear? That is the moment when the twin finally smiles, for it recognizes you as you truly are. The twin is also the voice of remembrance in suffering. When grief overwhelms you, when betrayal cuts deep, when despair whispers that you are broken, the twin answers differently. This pain is not the end of you. It is the doorway back to me. In every fall, the reflection remains intact, untouched by the world's cruelty. It is the untouched part of you, waiting with unwavering love. Can you imagine what it would mean to anchor your life in that unbreakable recognition? The ancients knew this truth could not be confined to dogma. That is why it was hidden in parables, woven into names, whispered through symbols. The mirror of the soul is not a doctrine, it is an experience. It must be felt, remembered, lived. And once remembered, it changes everything. You realize you were never walking through this life alone. You realize that Christ did not come to show you something you lacked, but to awaken the twin you had forgotten. So I ask you, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Just skin, eyes, a name, a history? Or can you allow yourself to see deeper, the reflection that is alive, waiting patiently for you to notice? What if that reflection has been walking beside you from the very beginning, guiding your steps even when you thought you were lost? The mirror of the soul is not a symbol, it is the forgotten twin, waiting for you to remember. From the first breath you took, something walked beside you. Not seen, not heard in words, but felt. The forgotten twin has been your silent companion since before you entered this world of matter. It is the quiet presence in your loneliness, the warmth that arrives when no one else understands. You may have thought it was your imagination, but the soul knows its own reflection. The twin has always been there, watching, waiting for you to turn inward and notice. The ancients described the twin as more than a guide. It is your true self, clothed in eternity, reaching toward you through the veil of time. When you laugh at beauty, when you are moved to tears by truth, when something in you whispers, "This is who I am," it is the twin stirring. The world tells you these moments are fleeting. The twin tells you they are the only real moments you've ever had. In dreams, the twin often appears, sometimes as a figure who looks like you, sometimes as a stranger whose presence feels uncannily familiar. It is the same presence that lingers in synchronicities, the book that falls open to the right page, the stranger who says exactly what you needed to hear. These are not accidents. They are messages, signs that the twin is calling you back into remembrance. But to listen requires courage. The world's noise drowns out the subtle voice of the twin. It speaks not in thunder but in whispers. It asks questions rather than issuing commands. What are you hiding from yourself? What would you become if you stopped pretending you were small? The twin is stern but never cruel, loving but never indulgent. Its purpose is not comfort alone, it is awakening. You may wonder, why would such a presence remain hidden? Because remembrance cannot be forced. The twin waits for you to open the door willingly. It respects the freedom of your journey. Even when you forget, it does not abandon you. Even when you resist, it does not condemn you. It remains steady and patient until the day you are ready to see yourself clearly again. The silence of the twin is not absence. It is invitation. It asks you to quiet the noise, to step into stillness, to listen beneath thought. When you do, you will find the voice that has always been there saying, "I am you. I am the light you lost. I am the home you left, but never truly departed." The forgotten twin is not something to achieve or earn. It is already within you, closer than your breath, deeper than your thoughts. Every moment of truth, beauty, and love is the twin breaking through the veil. The only question is whether you will notice. And so I ask, can you feel it now? As you hear these words, can you sense the presence that has been waiting all along? What if the companion you've longed for has never been outside of you, but has always been the silent reflection of your own eternal self? The world you inherited was not shaped by accident. It was sculpted by hands that feared what you might remember. The forgotten twin was once known in whispers, carried in the names and symbols of early followers. But those who sought control could not allow a teaching that placed the divine within every soul. So they erased the mirror, silenced the twin, and told you salvation could only be found outside yourself. The early church replaced reflection with obedience. Christ was raised onto a distant pedestal, and the people were taught to kneel, to worship the flame but never see themselves in its light, to depend on priests, dogmas, and institutions instead of their own eternal reflection. The twin, the very presence Christ embodied, was written out of the story. But truth cannot be killed. It hides in silence, waiting for those willing to seek. This erasure was not only a theft of knowledge, but a theft of dignity. To believe the divine is outside of you is to walk in exile, always searching, never arriving. But when the twin is remembered, exile ends. You realize the kingdom of heaven is not above the clouds or locked in temples, but mirrored within. The church feared this because remembrance cannot be taxed or controlled. It makes every soul sovereign. Why then was such a truth so dangerous? Because a people who know themselves as divine will not kneel before false rulers. They will not surrender their light to counterfeit gods. They will not fear hell when they know heaven lives within. The erasure of the twin was the cornerstone of control, but it was built on sand, and sand cannot hold against the tides of awakening. The archons used fear to enforce the forgetting, fear of death, fear of judgment, fear of being unworthy. But the twin dissolves fear with recognition. When you see your eternal reflection, you know that nothing can destroy what you are. Fear loses its grip, and control begins to crumble. Perhaps this is why you were never told about the twin, because remembrance is the one thing they cannot survive. And yet the truth still hums in the silence. In the Gospel of Thomas, in fragments of hidden texts, in the very name Ditimus, the twin lives on, buried but not destroyed, waiting for you to read between the lines, to feel what cannot be written, to remember what cannot be forgotten. Have you ever wondered why hidden gospels still surface after centuries? Perhaps it is because the twin has decided the world is ready again. When you begin to see this, the erasure no longer terrifies you. It reveals the depth of your worth. They tried to erase it because it was too powerful, too liberating, too uncontainable. That truth is still alive in you. The forgotten twin is not gone. It is simply waiting to be recognized. So I ask, what happens when you stop believing the story you were told and start listening to the voice within? What happens when you stop bowing before distant gods and start recognizing your own reflection in Christ? The answer is simple. The erasure ends. The twin lives again. There comes a moment when the search outside finally exhausts itself. You've chased answers in books, leaders, doctrines, and promises, only to find yourself circling back to the same emptiness. That emptiness is not failure, it is the doorway. For when everything external falls silent, you are finally ready to hear the voice that has been waiting all along, the forgotten twin. The reunion does not arrive with thunder or spectacle. It comes in stillness, in a whisper, in the quiet recognition that the presence you've been longing for was never absent. At first it feels like a memory surfacing, as though something ancient inside you suddenly stirs. Then it grows into a certainty. I am not alone. I was never alone. The twin has always been here. When you finally meet this reflection, you feel no judgment, only recognition. The twin does not scold or demand. It smiles with the patience of eternity. It looks at your wounds without fear, your mistakes without condemnation, and your doubts without scorn. Instead it says, you are still whole. Even in your forgetting, you never cease to be light. This reunion is not merely symbolic. It changes how you move through the world. You realize that every step you take is doubled, one in the material, one in eternity. Every thought echoes, every choice is witnessed. You are no longer a fragmented self stumbling in darkness, but a soul walking with its eternal companion. Imagine the strength of knowing that half of you has never left the pleroma. But the reunion is not always easy. It requires letting go of the stories that told you you were broken, separate, unworthy. It demands that you face the lies that shaped your identity. This is why few dare to see the mirror clearly, yet those who do find that the fear dissolves like mist at sunrise. What remains is freedom, the radiant knowing that you are both human and divine, time-bound and eternal. Think of how different your life would feel if every challenge was shared with a companion who cannot be shaken. Every grief met with a reflection that reminds you, this is not the end of you. Every joy magnified by a presence that knows it intimately, because it is also you. This is the power of reunion, not escape from life, but wholeness within it. The reunion also reveals why Christ walked the earth, not to establish another distant God, but to awaken humanity to their twins, to show, by his presence, that the Aeon lives in each soul. He came not to replace your light, but to remind you of it. To say, in every act of compassion and truth, what you see in me is mirrored in you. So I ask, are you ready to turn and face the reflection that has never abandoned you? Are you ready to feel the embrace of your twin, not as myth, but as living reality? The reunion does not wait in the future. It is here now in the stillness of your being. All it asks is your recognition. Life has a way of breaking us open. Loss tears at the heart, betrayal shatters trust, despair whispers that there is no meaning. In those moments, it can feel as though even heaven itself has abandoned us. Yet it is here, in the cracks of suffering, that the forgotten twin speaks most clearly. For the twin is not a distant savior, but the companion who enters the fire with you, refusing to leave. The twin does not deny your pain. It does not tell you to rise above or pretend it doesn't hurt. Instead, it gazes directly into your wounds, holding them with a love that will not turn away. When the world says you are broken, the twin answers, even in this, you are whole. When you collapse under grief, the twin whispers, this sorrow is a passage, not your prison. The presence does not erase suffering but transforms it into a doorway to remembrance. Think of the times when pain stripped you bare, leaving nothing but silence. In that silence, something eternal stirred. That was the twin, the reflection of your soul that cannot be destroyed by loss or failure. The twin guides you not by removing struggle, but by reminding you that nothing can touch your essence. Even in ashes, the flame remains. Have you felt it? The strange strength that rises in you after the deepest fall. The path of the twin is not avoidance, but transformation. It takes your wounds and makes them windows. Every betrayal becomes a mirror, showing where you have forgotten your worth. Every heartbreak becomes a teacher, reminding you that love is your nature, not your possession. Every shadow becomes a guide, pointing to the light you tried to hide. The twin leads you through the labyrinth of suffering until you see that every turn was leading you back to yourself. This guidance is stern yet loving. The twin will not allow you to remain in illusions. It will not indulge your self-deception. Instead, it stands unyielding, refusing to lie to you. And yet, beneath that sternness is the most profound compassion, for its purpose is not to punish, but to awaken. Every difficult truth it reveals is a seed of liberation. Every mirror it shows you is an invitation to wholeness. Have you ever wondered why, in your darkest moments, a strange clarity sometimes arrives? Why insight comes when you least expect it, like light breaking through cracks in stone? That is the twin guiding you, reminding you that suffering is not the end, but the threshold. The greater the shadow, the brighter the reflection that waits beyond it. The forgotten twin does not promise you an easy life. It promises you truth, remembrance, and wholeness. It promises that no matter what this world takes from you, it cannot take you. The essence mirrored in eternity remains untouched, invincible. To walk with the twin is to walk through fire and realize the fire cannot consume what is eternal. So I ask, when suffering comes, will you collapse into despair, or will you turn to the reflection that has never abandoned you? Can you see your pain not as a punishment, but as a passage into deeper remembrance? The twin is waiting, patient and steadfast, ready to guide you through the very shadows you thought would destroy you. There is a voice inside you that has never lied. It does not shout, it does not argue, it does not beg for attention. It waits in silence, steady as the stars. This voice is the forgotten twin, the echo of eternity within your soul. When all other voices fall away, it remains, whispering the same truth. You are more than this world has told you. You are light clothed in form. You have heard it before. In moments when you stood beneath a night sky and felt you belonged to something infinite. In times of deep stillness, when a sudden clarity rose within you, unshaken by doubt. in dreams where you recognize someone who was also yourself, smiling with timeless knowing. These are not fantasies. They are the voice of remembrance breaking through the noise. The twin does not remind you of things you never knew. It reminds you of what you have always known but forgotten. That is why truth feels like recognition, not discovery. When you hear the voice, you don't think, "I have learned something new." Instead, you feel, "Of course, I have always known this." That is the power of remembrance. The world tries to drown this voice. Advertising screams that you are incomplete. Institutions insist you are powerless without them. Fear tells you that you are fragile, unworthy, lost. But the twin cannot be silenced. Even if buried under centuries of lies, it still speaks, patient and unyielding. The question is not whether the voice exists, but whether you are willing to listen. Listening requires stillness. It requires courage to trust what you hear within more than what you see without. The twin speaks in simplicity. You are enough. You are eternal. You are whole. Yet those words can undo lifetimes of conditioning. They can dismantle entire systems of control. For when you believe them, you stop searching outside. You stop kneeling to false gods. You begin to walk as who you truly are. Have you ever wondered why moments of deep truth often move you to tears? Why beauty pierces the heart? Why love feels like recognition? These are the fingerprints of remembrance. They are the twin reminding you, this is who you are. This is the home you never left. The tears are not sorrow, but recognition overflowing. The forgotten twin is not only the voice of remembrance, but the proof that you were never separated from the divine. Every time you hear it, you are touching eternity. Every time you follow it, you are aligning with the Aeon within. This is why the twin is so precious, because it ensures you will never be completely lost. No matter how far you wander, the voice still calls. So I ask, will you allow yourself to hear it? To trust the whisper that feels older than time itself? Will you recognize the voice that has been guiding you in every moment of truth, love, and beauty? The forgotten twin is not silent. It is speaking even now. And it is saying, come home, remember who you are. From the beginning, the story was never meant to be about one man alone. Christ did not come simply to be admired from afar, nor to be raised beyond reach. He came as a mirror to awaken what already lived within you, the forgotten twin. Every teaching, every act of compassion, every parable was meant to turn your gaze inward. The tragedy is not that Christ was misunderstood, but that his true purpose was buried beneath centuries of control. Think of the words, "The kingdom of God is within you." This was not metaphor, it was instruction. Christ was pointing to the twin, to the living reflection inside each soul. He was saying, what you see in me is what you are. What I do, you can do also. Yet the institution could not allow this truth. To preserve power, they erased the twin and made the message about dependence, not remembrance. But the hidden purpose has never been lost. The twin still whispers it every time you glimpse truth that feels too close, too personal, to come from outside. The twin says, do not bow before me. See yourself in me. You are my reflection, as I am yours. What could be more liberating than realizing that the Christ you revere is also the Christ within? This revelation is not arrogance. It is humility of the highest kind. For to see the twin in yourself is also to see it in others. You cannot diminish another soul when you know each one carries the same reflection. Judgment softens, comparison dissolves, and love becomes the only true response. For how could you hate your own reflection? The forgotten twin reveals that salvation is not imitation but recognition. You were never meant to copy Christ like an unreachable model. You were meant to remember the Aeon already living in you. What he embodied was not exception, but remembrance of the universal truth, the divine spark mirrored in all. Do you feel the shift? From worship to awakening, from distance to intimacy, from separation to wholeness. When you begin to live this way, life changes. Prayer is no longer pleading, but communion with your own reflection. Ritual becomes less about ceremony and more about recognition. Even suffering transforms, because you realize that the same light that carried Christ through death is mirrored in you. You walk not as a follower, but as one who remembers. This is the secret that terrified the archons and the rulers of religion. If every soul awakened to its twin, there would be no hierarchy, no empire, no control. There would only be living mirrors, each reflecting the other in infinite remembrance. Perhaps this is why the Gospel of Thomas was hidden, why the twin was erased, because the truth could not be contained within walls of power. So I ask you, what if Christ was not asking you to believe in him, but to remember yourself? What if the real act of faith is daring to see your reflection in his light? The forgotten twin is waiting for that recognition, and when it comes, you will know the hidden purpose of Christ was never to stand apart, but to awaken the twin in all of us. At the end of all searching, you will find not a distant God, but your own reflection waiting patiently in the silence. The forgotten twin has walked beside you since before the beginning, whispering through dreams, guiding through pain, reminding you in moments of wonder. And now the question stands before you, will you recognize it? For recognition is the true salvation, not escape, not obedience, but remembrance. To recognize the twin is to stand before the mirror of your soul and finally see yourself as whole. Not broken, not condemned, not unworthy, but luminous. You realize that every longing for love was the twin calling you home. Every hunger for truth was the reflection stirring. Every moment of awe was a reminder that eternity has always lived within you. Recognition gathers these fragments into one radiant truth. You were never separate. When this recognition takes root, life itself becomes different. You walk with a quiet authority, not born of pride but of remembrance. You carry compassion because you see the twin in every soul you meet. You carry courage because you know nothing in this world can erase what you are. Even in loss, even in shadows, the reflection remains. This is what Christ came to awaken. Not worship, but remembrance, not imitation, but reflection. The world will try to make you forget again. It will surround you with noise, demand you bow to fear, and tempt you with false lights. But once you have glimpsed the twin, you cannot truly forget. The reflection will continue to call, to whisper, to draw you back. The bond is eternal, unbreakable, stronger than the illusions of time. Do you feel it now, that pull toward the truth you cannot deny? This is why the hidden texts matter. They are not relics of history, but reminders for the soul. They are maps back to what cannot be erased. They carry the fingerprints of those who refused to let the twin die in silence. And now those same words are stirring in you, awakening the reflection that never left. This is not coincidence. This is remembrance choosing you, here and now. So I ask, what will you do with this recognition? Will you keep it locked away, or will you live it? Will you dare to see yourself as a mirror of eternity and treat your life as sacred? Will you look into the eyes of another and recognize their twin as well? The world changes not when one figure is exalted, but when countless souls awaken to their reflection. That is the revolution of remembrance. The forgotten twin of Christ was never truly forgotten, only hidden, waiting for the brave to uncover it again. And you are one of them. You would not be here, hearing these words, if the reflection was not already stirring in you. The twin has brought you to this moment for a reason. The choice is yours, to keep wandering in forgetting, or to step fully into remembrance. So I leave you with this. Look into the mirror of your own soul. Dare to see beyond the surface. Recognize the reflection that has always been there. Walk with the twin, live from the twin, become the twin. And as you do, share this truth with others, for in awakening one reflection, you awaken the whole. If these words have stirred something in you, share them, subscribe, and let the remembrance spread. And if you wish to journey deeper, explore my books, stories and revelations that continue this path of awakening. The twin is waiting. The only question left is, will you remember?